Welcome back to another episode of Connect Beyond. I'm your host, Amaya, Miss Illinois Collegiate America, and I created this series to highlight teachers who are going the extra mile to connect with students, even outside of a typical classroom environment. This week, I'm joined by my high school friend and recent Howard University graduate, Esther Okossi. Listen to our conversation as she talks about how her HBCU education has prepared her for her career in teaching, and how she's learned to navigate a virtual teaching environment. Hope you enjoy. Hey, girl.
Hey.
This is my dear friend Esther, who is a recent graduate of the illustrious, go ahead,
Howard University.
Period. Talk to me a little bit about why you chose to, enter into the career field of teaching and like where that inspiration came from, and a little bit about your time at Howard, what you majored in and all that good stuff.
So it's actually kind of interesting that you asked that question. So actually back in high school, do you remember that speech you gave in our English class about why we should have an African American history class?
Okay, like vaguely.
Okay, so you gave this really great speech. So we used to have in our English class, she had us do 2-minute Tuesdays or some sort of like debate, and you was advocating for.
Yes.
Yes, you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that's actually what drove me.
Girl, are you me?
I'm not even trying to gas you up. That's really what was like, wow, she's right. We should have an African American history class. Why don't we have an African American history class? And I just remember our teacher saying something like, oh, well, the school doesn't really have a qualified teacher for that. And since that moment on, I was just like, I'm never going to let a school use that excuse again.
Oh my God.
So that's what got me into education. I wanted to really advocate for the change that I want to see, and there's also this book that I read while in high school called In Praise of Black Women, and I wish I remembered the name of the author, because as much as I talk about the book, I should remember her name. But it was such a revolutionary book because I saw myself in a different light, and I saw Black people in a different light, and I wanted future youth to have that revolutionary mindset. I wanted to see more diversity in education as far as the teachers, and I want to see diversity in the curriculum that's being taught to the students, that they can see themselves in the curriculum, but also see other people. So that's kind of what drove me to education. That's my why. As for Howard, so I was an English major. I double minored in history and secondary education. I'm going to be dual certified eventually in English and history.
I just think it's so, this is a for real full circle moment. Because I remember this was freshman year of high school. Our English teacher was a Howard grad, and you knew about Howard, and I had heard of it, but I was like, whatever. And you were like, tell me all this stuff about Howard. And then we end up at Howard together, rooming on the same exact floor. Remember that?
Yes.
Freshman year, I would come down to your room. I'm like, Esther, I want some apple juice. Do you have some apple juice? And
yes.
now, look at us now. And it's crazy how your purpose and your why can start from something so small. And those 2-minute Tuesdays, I don't even remember that really, but it's you held on to that, and now it's fueling your whole life, really, and your mission in life. So wow, girl, not me out here being a whole inspiration.
Yes, girl, you have no idea. I think that's so interesting. I feel like a lot of people will never really know how much you impact and inspire people. And I just really hope that when I have my students, that I can really inspire them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you will. You definitely will, because you've inspired me. Trust me. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the curriculum that you had at Howard and how it's prepared you for your future career in teaching.
The nice thing about Howard is, as an English major, I really was exposed to the whole discipline of English, so literature. So I had to take a Brit Lit class, which was rough. American Lit. I had to take a multicultural literature class. Linguistics, which is basically the foundation of language, and also just how language develops and things like that. All of that really helped me in my content knowledge, just knowing the wide disciplines of English literature, and it is how to connect the English literature and make it diverse. and how to also be critical about what is the canon of literature or English and things like that. Being able to bring that knowledge to the classroom and being able to find books or works to teach to the students. That's really how Howard helped me in that department. And of course, with, pedagogy, you have to take your Education 101 classes, you have to take special education, classroom management. My student teaching was probably the most helpful. But definitely the classes just really helped me with the content knowledge, but also really helped me in learning how to teach and what to teach and what's appropriate to teach to students and things like that.
Let's switch over to kind of the personal connection with students. Tell me how you've been able to do that through some of your internships and student teaching opportunities, and how you plan on to continue to do that as you have your own students in a classroom of your own.
When I did my summer teaching fellowship with the students, I was teaching rising 11th graders. One way that I was really able to connect with them was this thing called a rose, thorn, and bud. So basically a rose, they're going to note down what was something positive that happened to them. And a thorn is something not so positive they feel comfortable sharing. And then a bud is something they're looking forward to. And that was more so of a mental health check, just to see where their heads were at. Because you need to understand students' mental health, especially in a pandemic, and to be compassionate about that when it comes to their assignments and even sometimes their behavior in class. So that was one way that I was able to connect with students. Oh, and also following those 3 questions, I was able to ask them how they're feeling in the class, what is it that they need? And a lot of them said one-on-one time. So and you follow up with these things. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would connect with the students. And then also, you have to just be personable. You have to be, you have to just learn how to laugh at yourself. And not take things too personally, not get too serious all the time. Because sometimes kids, they will test you. And sometimes kids, they're just not going to always be in the best mood. Sometimes they're going to be frustrated and they may take it out on you. And it's not necessarily that they're trying to be disrespectful, but their brains aren't fully developed. They don't understand how to handle some of their emotions sometimes. So they just lash out on the teacher. And sometimes you just have to take a step back and just relax and just really hear what the student is actually saying, where is their frustration coming from, and respond to that.
It's so interesting because this pandemic has brought upon a lot of different struggles and just nuances for many people, and you just never know what people are dealing with or how much they went through to even be able to show up and to be able to take in the material and raise their hand and volunteer for different things. So I think that's important that you're checking in on people's mental health, because we went to the same school district. I don't know if that's something that I always felt, or I always felt that teachers validated in me and really wanted to know how I was doing as a person, not just in the class. So keep that up. Definitely keep that up. As I told you before, the Miss High School America pageant system, their national platform is BRAVE, and it stands for Building Respect and Values for Everyone. So my first question on that point is, did your education ever prepare you for situations of bullying? And if you've ever experienced that in your classroom, how do you combat it, or how do you stop that?
One thing that Howard did not prepare us for was, yes, the topic of bullying. So I work at a local tutoring center, and I had a student who was experiencing bullying at her school. And it had just occurred to me, I'm like, do schools really talk about bullying? I feel like this is not a topic really talked about. I feel like I heard it in high school, but then after a while, I just didn't hear about it. Basically, how I hope to combat bullying is you really start with expectations. I usually go into the classroom from day one with their expectations saying, okay, you must respect each other and you'll be respected, so just establishing that respect is necessary and mandatory. It's not just because, I'm your teacher, because obviously I want to respect you too. I want to earn your respect, but also you should respect your peers. So, people always want to talk about student-teacher respect, but not enough about peer-to-peer respect. I'm not expecting them to be buddy-buddy friends, but I do want them to know, like, okay, well, when we come to this classroom, everybody's thoughts are valued and things like that. But, you can do all of that, you can plan for all that, and sometimes bullying still can happen. So in those situations, you have to intervene. You can't just sit by and let one student bully another one. You have to intervene, tell them that's inappropriate, or have a conversation. I feel like you have to tell students just how much that messes somebody up. And sometimes they won't care. That's just the reality. They won't care sometimes. And sometimes they will care. So I feel like there's just a lot of ways to combat it, but definitely one way I feel like does involve like a whole school intervention. Like it can't just be me trying to combat bullying in the classroom. The whole school has to be doing something to attack this beast, really.
It's basic respect, and that's in the acronym, but you respect yourself and then you can respect others and realize that we all have one common goal here. We may look different, but we're all the same in some way because we're all humans. And just like valuing differences and respecting that and not making fun of it or calling it out, but cherishing it and realizing that that's what makes the classroom so special and so unique and getting to know people.
I'm glad you brought that up about talking about differences, because that's just another part of like my philosophy as teaching is like celebrating differences. And I do feel like when you involve and celebrate and show differences within the curriculum, students can learn to respect and appreciate each other's differences and also have a sense of understanding and tolerance, because sometimes bullying is rooted in intolerance. And also sometimes it's rooted in hurt. So that's where mental health comes in. So, you hurt people. So sometimes they need help. But other times it's just straight up ignorance. They don't know any better about another culture, another experience. And that's where, you have to come in and show these stories so our students can develop a sense of appreciation and understanding.
Well, sounds like you are very prepared. And if I was a student, I would want to be in your class, because it's like you really cherish people and you care about people. Of course, like getting the work done and making sure they understand the content is great, but I think rooted at your purpose is just like connecting with people. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in teaching, someone who is trying to teach through this pandemic, whether it be virtual or hybrid? From your experiences, what advice can you offer?
Advice that I would offer to somebody who would like to go into teaching is to take those classes seriously. You're in college, you're choosing what you want to study and what you want to do. And when you get to where you want to be, you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So take your classes seriously. Read the material for my English majors. I know it's a lot. I know you may not want to do it, but actually read the materials and really just like put your heart into the work, because then it'll also put your heart into when you're teaching. And again, you don't have to play catch up. As for teaching in the pandemic, really just learn your online platforms. Like I did a whole training on Zoom. So like just learn your online platforms, make sure you keep it engaging, differentiate a bit, don't just lecture to the students, but like have them go into breakout rooms, do peer-to-peer, things like that. And there's lots of online materials that they can do.
I just want to thank you, Esther, for chatting with me. It was great catching up. I'm so proud of you. Can't wait to see you just take the world by storm. You always have a special place in my heart, and I'm glad we were able to do this. And thank you for just volunteering your time and your knowledge as well.
Of course. Thanks for having me. You always have a special place in my heart as well, especially since you're kind of the reason I'm a teacher.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, talk to you later. Thank you again.